Hello and welcome. I wanted to make a video. I actually did not plan to make this video. I wasn't going to even throw my hat into the ring on the conversation about the Game Awards. And then today I was watching some stuff on YouTube and my girlfriend asked me, did you put up a video about the Game Awards? I said no. And she kind of looked at me and said, why not? And I said, I don't know if I really need to. And she said, I think you do. So the more I thought about it, the more I do want to talk about the 2023 Game Awards, because it was a train wreck at times. Well, it was disastrous at times for sure. Everybody is acting like this is the worst that it's ever been. And I wholeheartly disagree. And I will tell you why. So, remember back in this would have been 2013. So I want to say in 2012, the whole deal with Spike TV at the time ended, and that we had this like year interim before the Game Awards became what it is today, which is it's kind of like the Oscars for games, which is what it should be. And I don't disagree with that setup. But there was this one year where this would have been 2013. It was the year GTA 5 came out. And it was the first year they did it as a live stream instead of something that was on Spike TV. And this thing was like 6 hours long. They had Tyler, the creator, and his crew there as kind of like the co-hosts, and the whole thing was a disaster. They spent like so much time with these people just fucking around. The whole thing was a disaster. They kept having this thing like the music of Grand Theft Auto 5. Like the whole thing was trash. It just went on. It went on. I remember the game announcements that year were not very exciting. And this was a year coming on the heels of new consoles, Xbox One and PS4. So if you were to ask me what the worst year of the Game Awards are, that's the year that was worst. I would say this is a pretty close second though. But everybody's acting like this is just a problem this year. Like, oh, hey, they didn't give enough time to developers, or there was too much time spent focused on advertisements, or, hey, the whole thing is a giant advertisement. This has been a problem the entire time with the Game Awards. These are not new concepts. This has been a problem the entire time the Game Awards has existed. I just think this year it was more egregious than it has been in years past. First thing I would say, and probably the most damning and the worst, would be when you look at the situation in the games industry right now with like massive layoffs, buyouts, people losing their jobs. This should be a celebration of the hard work that people have put into making these games that this event is designed to celebrate. And instead, that excitement is regulated to Jeff Keighley shouting over that orchestra, 5 different categories before he fits in the next 3 world premiere trailers. That's not what it should be. The ratio here should not be 90% advertisement, 10% awards. And I think even more this year than years past, that's kind of how it was. Secondly, and the thing I would put out here is kind of equivalent to that, is this just overly egregious skirt chasing of Hollywood. It's insane. It's insane. We had to have Matthew McConaughey here. We had to have Timothée Chalamet. Him from Dune and the new Wonka movie and stuff. And these people are Hollywood actors, and like, it's cool. Like, we know Timothée Chalamet plays video games. Okay. Matthew McConaughey, I'd probably venture to say he doesn't very much. But fine, whatever. You got some Hollywood actors here, whatever. But then when you get to actually having a situation where somebody is on stage receiving an award, now this year they have 60 seconds to talk about it before they are flashed in their face a sign that says, please wrap it up, and the orchestra plays them off. Now, yes, last year when Christopher Judge won for Kratos, he spoke a little too long. And this year he made a joke, well, being funny, was incredibly distasteful given the event that they're at, which I'll talk about in a minute. But again, You cannot do that to the developers, but then when these Hollywood actors get on there, they don't do any of that for the Hollywood actors. And it's a real showing of like what really matters, what's being paid for and what isn't. And that's kind of where this situation is starting to unravel. Christopher Judge now. I think Christopher Judge is a cool dude. I love his performance of Kratos in both the 2018 God of War and Ragnarok. He's a cool dude, but his joke of his speech was longer than this year's Call of Duty campaign. Maybe not the best thing to say at an event focused on celebrating game development and game developers. Yes, I understand this year's Call of Duty is a massive disappointment. A lot of people are really pissed off about it. It is an incredibly short game, and it really does seem like it was DLC to last year's Call of Duty than an actual new Call of Duty. But again, given the situation where the joke was made and what's going on, we probably shouldn't have made that joke. And it came off as just kind of distasteful. And, well, the short end of the stick is Christopher Judge probably never going to be in a Call of Duty game. And no, I don't think that dude really cares. The point aside is probably shouldn't have made that joke at the Game Awards. And then you have what I hate every year, and this has been a thing going on for a couple of years now. Jeff Keighley will get up on stage. He will rattle off 4 or 5 different categories really quick. The most awful one this year, the one that pissed everybody off, myself included, is Best Indie Game, which Sea of Stars won. And as someone who has not played that is on my short list of games to play over the holiday before I do my Game of the Year stuff at the end of January. I probably would have talked about that. I probably would have done something with that. I probably would have brought those developers on stage. You should celebrate independent game development, not just rattle it off and go, okay, this is who won. Anyways, next, let's talk about esports, which nobody at this point really gives a fuck about. So bad choice, and even worse to do it this year, I think, than previous years, given the situation in game development right now. And then overall, you have the actual game announcements this year, which I think it was a incredibly weak year for game announcements. Now, I will say, Microsoft stepped up this year. They had 3 major things to show. Yes, one of those, unfortunately, is Hellblade once again. No, they couldn't commit to an actual fucking date for Hellblade, but hey, it's coming in 2024. Hey, we have that weird Nordic band singing a song. Gee, it sure really felt like this would have been an appropriate time to say, hey, it comes out on this day, on this month in 2024, but we couldn't do that. But again, snark aside, at least they did something with it here, I guess. The shocker of the entire show, I think, is the Blade game, which is being made by it'll be published by Bethesda, made by Arcane Lion, the people that did Dishonored. And I think this is awesome. As someone who's not a fan of the Dishonored franchise, I didn't want to see a Dishonored 3 because I'm not a fan of that franchise. So to see them do something that isn't Dishonored, but also a licensed game and a game on Blade, which is a fantastic character to do a video game on, I'm very excited about that game, and it's cool and it's awesome. And I also will say that game is probably, I'm like 99% sure that game will be a Xbox exclusive game, even though they didn't put that logo on the trailer. I think that was an oversight. And there's just everybody's out here like, oh, because it's a Microsoft game, I think everybody's out here going, oh, maybe there's a chance. There's not a chance. If your device has Game Pass, you'll be able to play Blade. That's what I would tell you. But again, fantastic surprise announcement. And then the other announcement from Microsoft was, getting Kojima to come out and not talk about Death Stranding 2, which is bizarre as fuck. Like, that game should be out. But instead he talks about his other project that he's doing with Microsoft, now called OD, or short for Overdose, which has, prolific actors in it. I mean, do you think Udo Kier at like 90 even knows what a video game is? So I thought that was cool. But he's teamed up with Jordan Peele, who I have massive respect for. I like 2 out of the 3 movies he's made. So, but I have massive respect for him in the horror genre and the horror community. He's made some fucking good horror movies. And I think him teaming up with Kojima is fan-fucking-tastic. So I look forward to that as well. Microsoft pretty big this year. Everybody else, not so much. You had Sony was a God of War DLC. That is not what people want out of a God of War DLC. And then everything else was just third-party stuff. You know, they ended the show on a new Monster Hunter, which that's cool for fans of Monster Hunter, but for people that maybe don't care about Monster Hunter, it was just kind of a whatever, shoulder shrug end of the year and or end of the show. And yeah, and I think another thing that really sucked the energy out of the room was 2 days prior we had the GTA 6 trailer. So, you know, like everybody's talking about that. So, and I don't think with my opinions on GTA 6, you know, 2025 is a ways off. I will say no trailer at this show was more exciting than that Grand Theft Auto 6 trailer. So, you know, there is that, I guess. But yeah, Game Awards, the bottom line here is do better. You need to do better. Like Keighley needs to do better. That whole team needs to do better. They need to respect their audience. They need to respect who they're catering to. Respect the developers that make these games. And kind of turn tides a little bit. Have it be 50-50. You know, it should be an even split. 50% award show, 50% ads for new games. Let's celebrate what happened this year and then celebrate what's going to happen in the future by looking at some new titles. So that's what the Game Awards should be. And instead it was 90-10, you know, 90% advertisements, 10% awards. I mean, for fuck's sake, the dude from Larian Studios got up to accept the Game of the Year award for Baldur's Gate 3, Critical Darling game. And he had 60 seconds to speak. He had so little time to speak that he didn't even get to say, hey, Baldur's Gate 3 is out on Xbox right now. The announcement I was waiting for, because then after the show ended, you know, people were like, is it happening or not? And then it just showed up on the Xbox store. So, which I, you know, will finally play Baldur's Gate 3. So that's cool. But would have been cool if you gave that guy time. I mean, here's the thing. And here's what upset me, and I think upset a lot of people. That man was in the middle of having kind of a heartfelt moment talking about members of his team that they lost to during the COVID pandemic when the orchestra started to play Wrap It Up. That's ridiculous, and that probably shouldn't be happening. So, Game Awards, do better. That's pretty much the concept here. They need to do better. Get some more banger announcements, and yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Remember to go listen to Podcast 572, the podcast that I do every 2 weeks with my two friends. We will be having a much larger conversation about the Game Awards on that podcast episode coming up pretty soon here. So, as always, until next time.